That was dumb. Well, good morning. Welcome to another video with a guy and his F250. So, I know we've been working on this truck a lot. Trust me, I know. But what we're doing right now, this video is the power steering pump. So I have an issue with this truck with the power steering pump. This is a V10, the 6.8. It should be the same as the Excursion and whatnot. But the power steering pump, it works just fine, and it doesn't actually whine until you're almost a full crank on the steering wheel before it starts, you know, going. So what I do have an issue with though is the pump itself seems to be leaking. I don't know if you can see the bucket under there, but anytime I take the serpentine belt off of the pump, it just starts dumping fluid out of the pump. And I don't know if it's a hose, I haven't gotten up there, but everything underneath that area is completely saturated in oil slash dirt slash nastiness. So we're going to just replace the pump. It wasn't that expensive. I'm not using remanufactured. I'm not a big fan of remanufactured. I haven't had a lot of luck with remanufactured parts. So I bought a brand new pump. I'm going to put the new pump in. The hoses are all nasty. They probably don't need to be replaced, but I don't know if you can see that. We're going to replace quite a few of them. I don't actually know that I have all the hoses I need. I just I was on online and I just bought every power steering hose that came up for this engine and figure they're all semi-cheap except one set. There's one set, it's like $170 for a hose. I said, not that one. Whatever that hose goes to better be good on this truck because I'm not spending $170 on a hose. So anywho, we're going to do this. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm not a mechanic. I don't guarantee this is going to work. I don't guarantee that even if this does work, it will work for you. Copy me at your own risk. I'm just a DIY guy. Let's do it. To start, let's go ahead and remove that driver's side wheel well liner. There's a variety of bolts and nuts holding it in. Go ahead and pull that out. We're going to take your air filter, whole entire dealio out here, the canister for the filter. You're just going to move it out of the way a little bit. Coming down here, we're going to unplug the hoses from the power steering cooler, and we're going to just spin the wheel or manually turn the tires to make that gearbox and pump turn to get all the fluid out. Remove your serpentine belt off of the pump pulley. Over here there's a little plastic cover protecting the gearbox. Move that out of the way. Pop both lines off. This can be fairly aggravating as there's no room to move a long wrench, so little tiny quarter turns at a time. These were stuck in there bad. In fact, this one right here I came back to later. I kind of just gave up and left it where it was until I had time to re-evaluate. Following this hose up to the reservoir, this is the bottom of the reservoir, go ahead and pop that off. As mentioned, I am replacing all of the hoses, so I mean, if you wanted to, you could just rip them all apart. Going back to the pump, with a variety of extensions and a 1/4 inch socket, I was able to get to all 4 of the bolts. You may only have 3, I had 4. It was kind of difficult and I couldn't really get a camera in, so, well, just get a bunch of extensions and try to get in there. Here we're pulling the pump out. It's kind of a pain in the butt to get to this point. I know it went really fast on video, but yeah, it was some of those bolts were stripped holding the pump in, and it took me a while. Just compare, make sure your pump is the same as the old pump. Make sure that all your lines are. Notice this line right here, it kind of wiggles. It's designed that way. It's not loose. It's designed to have some play in it so you can swing it around. And at this point, I was planning on reusing the pulley. At the end of the day, I didn't because I could not get it off with my cheapy little pulley removal tool. It just wasn't coming off. I tried, and then I went to my auto parts store, and there's a brand new pulley. Look at that. I would recommend putting this hose on now before you put the pulley on because access is a bear afterwards. So go ahead and put that on, and then you'll just snake it up there with the pump as you put it in. new pulleys going on. This is a kit I actually got at Harbor Freight, and I was actually impressed. It worked way better than the kit I had from Amazon that couldn't get the other pulley off, but you know, whatever. So there you go. There's your new pump with your new pulley and a new hose. And here we go, back on in. And again, it's really hard to get a camera in there, so not a whole lot of footage here, I'm sorry. But get this in line, use your 1/4 inch extensions. Probably, I don't know, I'm just gonna guess it's been a few months since I did this project. It was about 18 to 24 inches worth of extensions. And you can just snake it on up in there, and if you can kind of see here, you can get to 1 or 2 of the bolts. I actually had to replace a couple of these because whoever worked on this previously stripped them out, which was fantastic. On the bottom, it's a little bit kind of similar to get to. You just got to go in behind that pitman arm and do what you can. Put your O-ring on these lines going into the gearbox. And this line, I actually had to bend in order to get it to line up. It wasn't lining up out of the box, so I had to bend it. It's not that hard, just don't kink it. And then I was able to get it on all nice and purty. Here we go, take your condom off, sorry, your cover, whatever it's called, and you can put your hose. This is the hose going up to the reservoir that feeds the pump, and that's the reservoir right there, the bottom of it. Go ahead and connect her all in. And just like so, get your clamps on. Anywhere you don't see me using clamps, trust me, I put them on. I've been driving this for about 3 months since I did this project, and everything is working wonderfully. So for all of you keyboard people, shush hush. Alright, so there's this little clip on the side of the radiator holding these hoses on. I played with it for like 15 minutes and finally just gave up and broke it, as you saw. And I zip tied it back together when I was done. Feed your hoses on down. These are going to your cooler, by the way. And just snake her on down. Over here is your cooler right in front of your condenser, which is in front of your radiator. Kind of a pain in the butt to get these hose clamps off, to be honest. If I did it again, I might just unbolt that stupid cooler and pull it out of the truck. I mean, it wasn't all that bad, but it probably would have sped things up instead of sitting there playing with the pliers. Get your new hose on and snake it back up the same way you pulled the other one down. And up she goes. Alright, once you get it up, this one is going to the reservoir, so it goes all the way up and around, just like so. Boop. And then you have this one. This is the one that we came back to. I finally just got super frustrated and yanked it. I cut up my arm pretty good right there, but whatever. There was no O-ring in this one. There should have been. The new one had no O-ring. I fished around inside the gearbox looking for one. I could not find one. It doesn't seem to be stuffed up at all. I've been driving this truck for a while now after this repair, so I'm guessing whoever did this previously did not put an O-ring on. All the more reason I like to do my own work, because I know that there's an O-ring in there now. That being said, it didn't actually leak previously, so like I said, I'm not a mechanic. Remember that. Stop chewing me out in the comments for not being a mechanic. I'm not claiming to be one, nor will I ever claim to be one. So, alright, so now we are going to kind of just flush all that Mercon 4 out of the system. Same thing as earlier, we just filled up the reservoir and just kept turning the wheel with the truck off, not with it on. And this is just to flush out that system. And you'll see by the jack stand I spilled a bunch. That's not from a hose, that's from overfilling the reservoir. So once we flushed it for a goodly long time, we went ahead and connected our new hose back up. The old one was just hooked up just to get the fluid into the bucket. So with the system closed off, as you saw, we spun the tires a few more times, a few dozen more times, just to get the fluid through and no air bubbles, hopefully. And you can put everything back together, your serpentine belt and your air intake. At this point you can fire on, do some more air bleeding, and pretty much good to go. So as you saw in the video, and I'll probably mention it, probably did mention it, the pulley, the pulley puller that I have, that I bought just a little $20 one on Amazon, and it sucked. It didn't work. It wasn't even close to working. So it started to bend the little lip that you use to pull the pulley off. And when it started to bend, I just gave up. And I called up a couple different stores. AutoZone this time. Usually it's O'Reilly's. This time AutoZone had a pulley on the shelf. Not the AutoZone by me. I had to drive little ways to get there, but I got it. They had a pulley sitting on the shelf. So when I got the pump apart, or when I already had a new pump, so I went and I picked up the new pulley, and it's right across the street from Harbor Freight. So I went to Harbor Freight, and it's hard to say that Harbor Freight has a higher quality tool than somewhere else, but I bought the Master Pro, Mastercraft, Master, whatever the heck it is they carry, and it was $50 or $45, but it was a puller, and I want to try and pull this off with it, but I can say the new pulley went on the new pump like freaking butter with the one from Harbor Freight. So it doesn't hurt to replace the pulley. I mean, it doesn't hurt to keep it if you can, but you'll also notice, quick tip, this hose is a bear to get to once this pulley's on, so I would recommend putting the hose on before the pulley and then feeding this whole thing up into the engine bay, and then you can snake this up to the gearbox, and I think it's a lot easier that way. Don't forget to put your O-ring on the end. But yeah. Beers. How many beers did this take? Well, I wasn't drinking beers because everything on this truck is freaking filthy. This is the nastiest truck I've ever worked on, and I don't know if that goes back to the head gasket issue where they just oil everywhere, didn't clean it up, and then dirt everywhere, and it just creates this oily mud. But this oily mud is everywhere under this truck, and anything I do takes 5 seconds, and it's nasty. And I mean, you can see on this, let's see if I can get a close-up. Everything is just like this. So anyway, this is out. How many beers? If I was drinking, can't really drink, it gets so nasty, but if I was drinking, I would say this is probably a 7 beer job, believe it or not. This was a rough one. This was a pain in the butt, mainly because my screws were stripped. If your bolts are not stripped, you probably won't have as much of a hard time. Compound that with the nasty oil grease stuff that is on this thing from a previous head gasket leak, I'm assuming. This was also leaking for a long time, I can tell. So couple that with that, and it took a while. So I'd say 7 beers. It's doable. Can you do it in the front yard under a shade tree? Yes. Yes, you can. When it comes to bleeding the system, I don't know if I did that right. Remember, I'm not a mechanic. Don't think I am. I'm not a mechanic. I should have watched some YouTube videos like you're doing on how to bleed the system, because it was Mercon 4 in there before, I'm assuming, and you can't mix it with Mercon 5. So I wanted to flush out the whole system with the Mercon 5 so there's no more Mercon 4. And plus I replaced all the hoses. Every hose for the power steering is replaced now. And so there's going to be air in the system. So I bled it the way I think you're supposed to. Whether that is the way you're supposed to or not, I don't know. So watch a couple other videos on how to bleed your power steering. Don't just take my word for it, because I'm not a mechanic and I don't know if I did it right. But I did do it, and it seems to be working just fine. So if you liked what you saw, leave me a thumbs up, hit that like button, and remember to subscribe so you can see my other videos on this truck and others like it. I have a whole playlist dedicated to this on my channel. I also have, for those of you that have been asking, I have a donate through PayPal link on every single video now. It's on both the video description and the pinned comment by myself. So check that out if you're interested. And yeah. The next project coming up, I think, is tie rods and all that stuff. We got to do the fan clutch. We're going to change out the serpentine belt. So there's a couple more projects coming up. So we'll see you next time.